All right, y'all, I've been trying to say this for 2 days. I've been trying to find the way to put this into words, and I keep tripping over myself and I keep getting distracted. And so I am in my closet. No joke. I'm just going to tell it. I'm just going to say it and let God deliver it. The Lord has had me on this so strong this week, and just in a conversation I just had pouring this whole thing out. I'm like, dude, I gotta put it out there because it's monumental. It changes everything. So I woke up this week, I don't even remember what day, with this impression from the Lord of designer. So strong. And I sat down and I grabbed my notebook and I felt him like just giving me these pictures of the literally every cell in our body, of how he put it together and how he knit each piece and he designed it so perfect. And science has been understanding things and figuring things out for generations now, right? And it's great. But he knit it from the beginning of time. He put in space, like, I would just go on forever. I don't want to take all this time. This is our God. He is the designer, right? So I'm writing this all down, and it just felt him so clearly go, since we have a design, we have a designer. And the designer is the one who knew the purpose for which he designed us, right? Every muscle fits perfectly to every joint and ligament, produces every movement, every step, every breath. Everything we talk, everything we do, when we play soccer, when we do gymnastics, all these, when we draw, when we run, every piece of us, he made to work the way it works. The gifts and the talents he's put in them, they're for his glory because he's the designer, right? So he watches in adoration of this design that he made and how beautiful it works. He knows how we work best because he's the designer. He's the one who knit us together, right? And this is where he started stirring. He said, the enemy of the Lord's creation longs to destroy the Lord's heart. We are the channels through which he does. I've been taught my whole life that we look like God, that we're made in his image, so therefore the enemy targets us. And the Lord made so clear to me today this picture that I had earlier in January of a friend whose son, he is severely autistic. And as I was praying over this family and this child, I saw a picture of the word autism over this boy's body. And from the back of the boy's body, this hand punched through the word autism, through the back, out that, and reached under her heart. And he told me in that moment that this is actually not what it looks like. This is the enemy's attack on the family's heart, on the woman's heart, that is using that name, using that diagnosis to reach his family. That's the destruction. And I saw that here. When he showed me that word designer, he said, the enemy is coming through the creation, the creation that the Creator made. He's coming through you, and his point is to get to the Lord. You are not the target, my friend. You are not the target. Sorry, I'm shaking this. Like, you are not the target. So I'm stepping back, and I was talking to another friend, and Jason and I were talking, whatever, we'll just go there. We were talking about the LGBTQ society. What do you even call it? I don't know, the whole train of thought. And a friend whose child is homosexual, and when I was talking to her, I knew in that moment completely, that's just how the Lord talks to me. I knew that he had been abused as a child. And then suddenly I got this bigger picture of the design of creation, of God made us, and I knew that is actually what is going on with the entire LGBTQ movement. And I know people will be like, yeah, okay, but here's the thing. God designed our bodies, and I did not know this as a child. So I'm saying this through the lens of this whole idea he has me on about designer. I was told, you wait till have sex until you're married. That's just for your husband. It's wrong to do anything else. It's a sin, right? I agree. Like, I'm not going there. But in college, when, I'm out on my own and decide that I'm going to do all the things because, well, it actually started with one thing that my church then shunned me from, and then it just became all the things. So I remember the first time that I slept with the boy I was dating, and I, right after, significantly remember this moment of going, I didn't die. Like, I legit thought, I don't know if I thought lightning was going to fall from the sky or what, but I remember thinking, sin equals death. Therefore, if I do that thing that I shouldn't do, I'm going to die. And I didn't die. And so what did I do? I slept with multiple people I'm multiples of multiple people during the course of my college life because my church had turned away from me. I knew Jesus forgave me and I could justify it in my head. I mean, totally warped, right? But I could justify it. Flash forward to all the things I've learned and what the Lord has done in my life. And it's been so spectacularly amazing how he's flipped who I was into just insane. But when I'm sitting there realizing what I didn't understand about our bodies, like we don't understand. God made us to love sex in a healthy monogamous relationship. He designed us. He knows how he made us, right? So our bodies they develop long before we're in that kind of situation because our bodies develop different rate of our mind, our emotions, right? They all have to fit together to be in a place to be in a healthy relationship where when you are having an intimate relationship with somebody in a committed relationship, everything is different than when you're 13 and you get raped or when you're 6 and your priest does things with you. So you have the same body that is meant to respond in a positive way to sex in general, and all of a sudden you're being taken advantage of in a situation most often by the same sex, right? How many Catholic priests do we know abused boys, right? So their first exposure to the pleasure that their body gets is in a wrong sexual relationship, and their body and their mind associate that and shame, which makes it worse. And they become the thing they feel because that's what this society does. This society tells you, you are what you feel. It's all about identity, people. It's all about identity. When you are what you feel, then you're going to rise up and you're going to attack anybody who comes against what you feel because it's who you are. It's your identity. And we should be able to be whoever we are. Well, here's the thing, people. We are not what we feel. Like, how many people got married and the minute they got married, they felt married? How many people had a baby and the minute they had the baby, they felt like this great mom? Like, what about the dads whose wives had the baby? They don't feel like a dad right away. Some take a long time. Our feelings are not who we are. If we went by our feelings, we'd be screwed. You get off a roller coaster, you still feel like you're on a roller coaster for a long time, but you're not. The feelings have been interchanged and shame has been associated with it. So these people are bound. The design that God made for them is being twisted by the enemy's perversion of people. And he's created a whole class of people who think they are what they feel and they don't understand any of it. So then he brought me back to the garden, y'all. This is what's so crazy. My whole Christian life in church, I have heard people talk about the Garden of Eden. And in Genesis, when God made everything, in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested, and then he made Adam and Eve, and he said, don't eat of the tree. You can eat of any tree, but not that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Otherwise, you're going to surely die. And then the snake came in, right? And he said, are you really going to die? Did you say you can't eat of any tree? And Eve goes, oh, no, just that tree, and we can't touch it, right? Because, here, little side note, Eve never heard from God directly. It's recorded. It's recorded that God told Adam that. So our assumption is God told Adam, Adam told Eve. So when the serpent, who did he come to? He didn't come to Adam. He came to Eve. Why? Because Eve heard third hand or second hand. She didn't hear it first hand. That's a whole nother story. But the serpent comes and he tests her with identity, people. Identity. Because he was offering to her this idea of, if you eat from that tree, you're going to be just like God. That's what he doesn't want. You're going to be just like God. Identity. She wanted to be something that he thought she could be. The reality is, she already was it. If you read Genesis 2 and 3, you'll find out mankind was made in the image of God already. They were just like him. So they got tempted to eat from that wrong tree by somebody who tricked them to listen to their voice, to try to get them to be something they already were. Insane, right? So I've always heard that story told like God needed to put that tree in the garden so that man could have a choice to choose good or bad. Otherwise, what is love if you're just told what to do? And although there's definitely some important thought patterns in there, because God did not make robots, absolutely. And yes, there is free will on this earth. The reality is, I should say this, I don't know if the word reality is the right one. The deeper truth in all of this is God, in Genesis 1, read it. God made everything day by day. And it was good, and it was good, and it was good, and it was good. When it records him making the trees, it does not record him making a good tree and a bad tree. He records it was all good. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil was in that garden, as was the tree of life, which God never told them they couldn't eat of. Had they eaten of that tree, that's why God sent them out of the garden. Had they eaten from that tree, they would have lived forever. And their separation from God, he wouldn't allow to be forever. He already knew his plan was to send his son. That tree of knowledge of good and evil, there was nothing wrong with that tree. I dare you to go and find out what was wrong with that tree. There was nothing wrong with the tree. The problem was it wasn't good for mankind. Because mankind, although made in the image of God, is not God. And their designer, who designed them, knew that. He knew that their lives could not handle what would happen if they ate from that tree. Because he knew how we made them. He is our designer. How epic is that? Like, it's everything. It's everything. We are looking at the Bible and trying to do the things because they're right. We have the right heart, but the wrong thought pattern. I was taught my whole life, you don't sin. It is wrong. What do you do then with a group of people who hear about Jesus and believe him? How do you convince somebody to do the right thing? You don't. The Holy Spirit does. Romans 8. If you're looking for the new covenant and you want to read it in Romans 8. That's where it says, I want to say it starts around verse 5. I will make a new covenant in that day that is not like the old one, where I will write my laws on their hearts or on their minds and put them in their hearts. I will be their God and they will be my people, for I will forgive them. I will forgive their iniquities. I massacred that. Go read it for yourself. But the whole point is, at that time when he wrote that, Jeremiah in chapter 31 prophesied that. Romans is where Paul quotes it. This is what's happening. This is where we're living in. He's trying to tell people. In that day, I'm writing all of my laws and my commands on their hearts. Because right now, the Spirit that's in them is going to lead them. And he's going to guide them. And he's going to show them. It's not going to be doing it because it's wrong or right. It's going to be, I know my Father's heart. I know how he made me. I get to live in his design. Y'all, tonight, get this in your heart. You have a designer who knows how you're made. He knows every situation in front of you. He knows all the people around you and what they're struggling with. And I'm telling you, if you find out what he says about things, there's a little snippet. It's whatever, I'm already marriage. I didn't know this. I laugh because I went to so many small groups when we were newly married at our churches, and people would pray for their husbands to be the head of the house, and the women were so frustrated because they were doing their Bible study and they were reading and they were praying and their husbands were working and they were too tired, and I'm the spiritual head of the house and I shouldn't be the spiritual head of the house. All well-intentioned but twisted, and it led to miserable relationships and a lot of small group discussions that were just warped. They weren't right, but we didn't know any better. Well, since then, he's shown me God designed men to be the head of the house. They are the head of the house, whether they're leading their family towards the Lord or not. Children will always follow their father. I laughed so hard when Jason finally saw that one day. Oh my gosh, it was hysterical because we've been talking about it. I was like, I can do all of these things, pray all of these things, and they come not in a bad way. I have a spectacular husband. I adore him. But it was so funny. It was about worried about gas. It was when our second daughter started driving and she was kind of panicking about not having enough money for gas. And that was always a thing he said, right? So anyway, I showed him. I said, do you see how they follow you? Even without trying, they just do. What an eye-opening experience that has been, learning all of this. Because here's the thing. The Father always leads. So whatever he's doing, they will learn and they will follow easiest. That's God's design. We don't have to pray it into existence. We have to pray for our husbands' hearts. That's the thing we as wives have to realize. We much more often easily hear from the Lord, and we press into him, and we take that time, and we're praying for our families, and we're praying for the futures, and we're praying for our husbands. That's our role. Not that our husbands shouldn't and can't do that. Absolutely they can. But we need each other. The women turn the husband's heart towards the Lord they serve. That's what we do. Isn't that crazy? Like, if you read Solomon, you read in the Bible, Solomon, the book of Proverbs, the wisest one that ever lived, King David's son. Ecclesiastes, it's funny. You got to learn these things. Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived. It is the most depressing, corrupt view of the world ever. Why? Well, because Solomon had about 700 wives and concubines by the end of his time reigning. They turned his heart away from the Lord, just like the Lord says, when you intermarry, when you marry other people who serve other gods, you will follow them. You will follow where the wife follows. And by the end of his reign, it is recorded that King Solomon, who made the temple of God, that is like more brilliant than any other temple, right, it could ever be made, that same king also made the high places of Milcom. Molech, the one who people worshipped him by sacrificing their children through fire. Like, I can't even. The atrocities. And Solomon was one that built his high place, you guys. Why? Because his wives turned his heart away from God. Our gift, women, is to turn our husbands' hearts towards God. If you're frustrated that they're not leading your family, you need to look again, because they are leading your family. You need to lead them to the Father. You need to pray for them that they can hear. You need to get them in the Word and read with them, because they are leading their family. And so are you. We need each other. God's design, right? It's epic. It's epic. Y'all, I don't know. I could go on, but it's enough for today. I just want to leave you with this. Like, okay, so ask him about the design. Ask him what he has planned. Like, he knows all of these things. And if you know somebody, if you are somebody that is stuck in, and probably wouldn't even see it as stuck with this in the LGBTQ frame of thought, I want to tell you that you actually were designed on purpose by a creator. And people may think that they tell you you're born like this. But let me tell you this. There is only one God, and his name is Yahweh. He was and is to come. He is the truth, right? He is. He knit you together. If you read through the Bible that believers call truth, well, I could go on forever here. If you read through the Bible, you'll find out that God, the only true God, makes it very, very clear that homosexuality, that any kind of bestiality, anything like that is an abomination to him. And let me tell you very clearly that the God that we serve does not say one thing and then do another. He does not create something and then call it an abomination. He would never have made you, knit you together in a way that would be an abomination to him. It's a lie. You have had feelings. I will never deny that. But you are not your feelings. Like, I don't know if the world's going to tell you that. You are not your feelings. You have the freedom. You have the freedom to choose to say, I will not be defined by my feelings. I will lay my life down, like he says in the Bible we get to do. I'm going to lay my life as a living sacrifice before the Lord, because he knew I could never do it right. And as a result, he came down himself in the form of a baby, and Jesus Christ hung on the cross so that I could be free from being defined by anything that this world has to say. I am a child of God, and I'm going to let him take my desires, my heart, and I'm believing that his word says he's creating in me a clean heart, and he's putting his desires in me, and I'm going to watch him do it. I refuse to have any label that he didn't give me, because if he knit me together, he knows why he made me. And here's another thing, y'all. Gosh, I could go on and on and on. If you ever wonder why there's groups of people that are targeted, interesting. There's definitely groups of people on this earth that are targeted. Why? Why do you think? Could it be that there's answers inside those people for the world at this time in history? Could it be that something they're carrying for this world is so important to the Lord that the enemy knows it and he's coming after them to knock them out of the game? I pray that you get this message. I pray that the whole world would get this message and recognize, if you feel like you're under attack from anyone, you have to know the source of it. And you have to recognize that the one who knit you together, whether you call him God or not, still has a plan for you. And I'll be damned if today isn't the day you stand up and say, I want to know what it is. Yahweh, if you are God, I'm asking you to show yourself. If you are who this crazy woman thinks you are, then I want you to show me. If you really are love, show me what love is, because I've never known it. Ask him. See what happens. I'm telling you, his design will outdo anything anybody has ever told you. And you just might be the most free person anybody has ever seen. If you are, tell me. I want to know.